celebrating a Stanley Cup championship. Welcome to InGoal Radio, the podcast. I'm Darren Malone, along with the co-founder of InGoal magazine, David Hutchison. Kevin Woodley is on assignment after working his tail off at the Pete Fry Mind Guy seminar over the course of the weekend. We have a lot to talk about today, including the feature interview with Jake Oettinger of the Dallas Stars. You want to know what it was like to be in the zone? He describes it perfectly, along with a few other things. And we also have the Coupe de la Montréal championship and the Hockey Hall of Fame to talk about as we say hello to David. You are carrying the ball today with a feature interview brought to you by Sense Arena, and also had the latest on the Hockey Shop, source for sports Surrey, and some big news over there.
There is big news over at the Hockey Shop. The Hockey Shop, of course, brings us all our shows, and they've just been fantastic with us over the years. Ever since we started InGoal magazine about a dozen years ago, we've had a great relationship with the Hockey Shop, and they announced this week something we've known for a little while, that there's a new store coming. So if you're one of those folks who likes to come to the Lower Mainland for a hockey tournament and maybe convince mom or dad to stop by the Hockey Shop, this fall, it's going to be a whole new exciting experience because they are moving into a purpose-built facility that is over 34,000 square feet of hockey. What do you call it? Goalie utopia. Yeah. He's going to need a whole new superlative for the Hockey Shop when you check out this new store that's going to be available for everybody to check out coming this fall. And that's really just a sneak peek about what's coming. I can only imagine what Cam's goalie room is going to look like now when he gets a little bit more elbow room, when there's more area for Woody to come in and make a mess. It's in a great area of town, going to be just down the street from where my son is playing hockey this year, we hope. And that means I'll be in there trying in all the gloves and leaving them all over the floor for Cam to pick up as well. Now, if you didn't know that the Hockey Shop had a new store coming, then you aren't on their mailing list. I would like to encourage everybody to go to thehockeyshop.com. You'll get a little pop-up there. You can put in your email address. Not only will you get the latest news from them, but every month they give away a $25 gift card just for signing up for the newsletter. And if you had a $25 gift card, Darren, I bet you could buy a new dangler for that. I bet Woody could buy some new deodorizer for his stinky gloves. I'd probably buy a whole bunch more sock tape for my kid because that's literally what I was doing in there last week. I brought 2 giant packs of sock tape for him to get him through the summer. Go sign up for the Hockey Shop newsletter and you will hear all the great things that are happening. And we are sure to bring you a guided tour of the new store as soon as we can.
What does Maddie use sock tape for?
Knee pads. So he puts socks over top of his knee pads, and then he does one wrap just below the knee, and that stops them from sliding down ever.
Oh, okay.
And I do the same
because
thing. Yeah.
Some guys use sock tape as goaltenders around their ankles or the knee pads and different things, and other guys haven't touched a roll of sock tape for years.
That's true. Or you could maybe go check out one of the old videos we have over on our YouTube channel. And isn't it Marty Baron going through about 2 rolls of sock tape per leg or something? It was just absurd, but a whole lot of fun.
That tape ball by the end was the size of Venus. I can speak firsthand of that. So what would you do with the new goalie utopia, goalie heaven, goalie seventh heaven? What would you do with that for Cam and the company if you could put something in there yourself?
Can I vote for a 200-foot long shooting room so that we can practice goalie goals?
Yes.
Yeah, because the shooting room now, it's great for players trying to go bar down. Yeah, exactly. That's a shooter's room for players mostly. We're not really learning how to go bar down. So yeah, I'm going for the 200-foot shooting room. And other than that, really, honestly, it's just a fantastic place as it is. So just more elbow room, so there's more toys to play with.
Yeah.
How about you?
Maybe a place that you can. I want a place where I can go like top of the crease and do a butter stack over to the post. That's what I want to be able to do. And full on.
We like some real ice in there.
Celebrate. Yeah. And maybe an InGoal Radio podcast studio.
Sound studio in there for us. I like it. And if we could have the lights permanently installed so I don't have to go in and set up every time Woody and Cam want to do their thing, that'd be great as well.
An awesome gear segment coming up today. We're looking at masks or helmets, whatever you prefer to call it. But we've got the new Bauer NME ONE mask and a full review of that. The Instagram and the YouTube video will be out as you can watch Woody wear the mask. So that's coming up in just a little bit. But first, acknowledgement Darcy Kemper manages to outlast Andrei Vasilevsky in a great contrast of goalies. One team is asking the goalie, just don't lose it and make the saves that you're supposed to make. And the other team was asking the goaltender to win it and really leaning on him. It was a great illustration of different styles.
It was, and it led to really one of the best finals we've seen in a long time, and kind of sad that we didn't get that seventh game.
Yes.
That I think all of us deserve. So yeah, wonderful performance again by Andrei Vasilevsky. Kevin, who isn't here to share all of his fancy stats with us, did share on Twitter that after the end of game 4, so looking at overtime and through to the end, Colorado limited Tampa Bay to only 6 high percentage chances. That's in 9 periods, 6 high danger chances. What an incredible defensive performance. I don't think we can underestimate how difficult that can be for a goaltender, though, because now Darcy Kemper is being put on the spot to make one incredible save just when it's needed. And he did do that, didn't he, towards the end of game 6 with that.
Why did he ever?
Yeah, so that's many goaltenders have told us over the years how challenging that can be and how much easier sometimes it can be when you get a whole bunch more sort of low danger opportunities to get yourself rolling. And Darcy didn't have that. So that's a great skill for him too. And not to be overlooked. He's going to have his name on the Stanley Cup alongside the first ever Finnish goaltending coach, the first ever European goaltending coach. So congratulations to UC Parkilla for his role with the Colorado Avalanche over the last 5 years.
And I wonder if that opens up a door to a more European influence on the teaching side of the National Hockey League or professional hockey.
I hope it does. I think it will. We've heard a few rumblings, nothing we can really talk about right now, but a few rumblings of some names that are getting some interviews. So that's at least a good start. I think it's so important to open up the game to new ideas. And we can be very, very much too insular within the goaltending community. So if we can open it up to a wider area and more voices, it seems probably like a no-brainer that people would be sharing information and that we'd all be open to everything. But the reality is, in the busy hockey life, there isn't a lot of time to collaborate and learn from each other. There's sort of a few select opportunities. And so I think bringing in voices from other countries, from other leagues, is only going to be good for everybody in the game.
A couple of observations about the Stanley Cup final. Darcy Kemper always goes for a skate after every stoppage. I thought that was a pretty cool thing to watch, just the way he seems to shut it down, like almost Marty Brodeur. Remember he talked about, like, when the whistle went, he would escape from the game and then the whistle comes back. But he would look like Kemper just flushes out the intensity by going for that little skate. And Andrei Vasilevsky, every time he catches the puck or hands it off to a linesman, there's a little pat on the linesman on the front of the pads, which was just a cool little thing. And it wasn't just when he made a big save; it was just a regular thing that he always did with the officials.
I didn't know that. That's a great pickup. I think it's super important that goaltenders have a great relationship with the officials, and you never know when you might need that little whistle or that call to go your way. And I find it fun just watching hockey at all levels. And I don't know about you, but I seem to notice the referees far more interested in having a little chat with the goaltenders than anybody else out on the ice for the most part. And that's really neat. I'm going to have to go back and check that out.
We also are following the Hockey Hall of Fame announcement and the introduction of Roberto Luongo as an inductee for next fall. The longtime National Hockey League goaltender, 2-time Memorial Cup goaltender. We'll get to that in the Memorial Cup Championship as well. But played for a few different teams, and including one team twice. What do you think the calling card of Roberto Luongo's career is?
Consistency, that ability to deliver what was needed, to deliver wins for his team throughout his career, just getting the job done any way he could get the job done. It was a fascinating career. I think as we look back, people are going to be talking about how he endeared himself to the fan base through his social media accounts. But of course, that's not how things started, certainly not in
Yeah.
Vancouver. He had that sort of cold persona that people thought was there. And that ability of him to open up, I think was a bit trailblazing for athletes. And I hope more are able to find a way to do that. I think everybody felt towards the end of his time in Vancouver and beyond that they had a connection with Lou. I wish Woody was here to share his thoughts on it. This is the perfect week for him because they're pretty close, the two of them, and I know he's been an important person in Woody's life through his whole time in Vancouver. Of course, let's not forget the very first ever InGoal Radio podcast. Our featured guest was Roberto Luongo, driving around the streets of Vancouver in Woody's car. Getting strange looks as they pulled up the stoplights and people looked over, and first they realized who was in the car beside them, and then they wondered, why the heck is this guy holding a microphone? Um, so Woody's mobile podcast recording studio was born in the very first episode, and thanks to Roberto Luongo. Yeah, what a fabulous career. Fourth overall in wins in the National Hockey League. There's the gold medals for Canada in the Olympics, the gold medals at the World Championships. Just a fabulous career, and glad that we could be a little bit of a part of it on the side here.
Yeah, didn't win the Stanley Cup. We are all aware of that, getting to a Game 7 with the Vancouver Canucks. But two things do separate themselves when I look back in his career. One was the Olympics and taking over from Martin Brodeur in a tough situation. And the other one was a World Cup when he was thrust into the situation late in the tournament and managed to hold on and preserve Canada's chances and win that title. So again, from Martin Brodeur, but boy, oh boy, was he a stoic in the face of pressure, wasn't he?
Oh, absolutely was. I just an incredible career, and yeah, the Olympic one really stands out for me because the pressure that was on him, the home Olympics in Vancouver. I think it's fair to say there were people probably doubting him in that situation. Replacing Martin Brodeur. For me, that was a signature moment in his career, and just great to be able to see it. I had a funny little one. I probably brought it up on here before, Darren, but I'm not sure. In the very first year or two of InGoal, when we started doing some gear testing, CCM wanted to get us the new Reebok P4 so that we could try it out. And there was a bit of a deadline involved because of when they needed the review to be out to align with some releases. I'm not sure, but it came in literally on Boxing Day. Sorry, excuse me, Christmas Eve. It came in, arrived, and I got the notice that it was at the FedEx facility here in Nanaimo, but wasn't going to be delivered to the house. So I stopped by and I said, "Hey, got this shipment, really need it. Do you think you guys can find it?" Somebody went in the back room, came out about 30 seconds later. "Yeah, it's not here." I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's here. And I never try and pull one of these funny things before. I'm in no position to say, "Do you know who I am?" But I was able to say, "Do you know whose gear that is?" Because what they had sent us a set of Roberto Luongo's gear because it was all they had on hand. And when I said to the FedEx guy, "Roberto Luongo's gear is in your back room." "Oh, hang on, I'll look again." And it took about 2 minutes, and out came the gear. And then everybody working there wanted their photo taken with the gear. It was a pretty funny situation. Tells you a lot about the impact of Roberto Luongo around here in Vancouver, the Lower Mainland, Vancouver Island.
I liked this mask game as well. The artwork.
Loved it. Yeah. And one of the ones that really stood out for me, I don't know about you, but was the one that Francois Allaire's son actually painted for him. And I don't even know if it made it into a game. It didn't last for very long, but it's sort of wooden styled, so it looked like it was actually a wooden mask itself. I thought it was spectacular. And of course, the Johnny Canuck ones that he wore both in Vancouver and at the Olympics as well. Yeah, really enjoyed it. Did you have a favorite?
The Johnny Canuck Olympic one, quite frankly, is just engraved in my head like that wood mask. But I will say that we've talked to a few different goaltenders over the years who have their family rooms or man caves with all the masks that they've worn over the course of their National Hockey League time. Lou's going to need something close to the new hockey shop Source for Sports setup because he wore a lot of buckets over the years.
He sure did. Hey, and let's not forget the Pink Panther too
Yes.
in Florida. So another one that I loved. Yeah, he's going to need a whole Roberto Luongo museum for his masks.
He was a great team, a great bad team goalie as well. Some guys can play for great teams. They can. Other guys are good on suspect teams, but can't make the saves when it counts. This is a guy that won Olympic gold medals playing for Canada, but then it was also unbelievable with the New York Islanders and some of those Florida teams that gave up a lot of shots. He could play both sides of it.
He sure could, right? We were just talking about how difficult it can be when you don't face a lot of chances. And here's a guy who can handle just about anything that's thrown at him. Fourth overall in wins for a career. There weren't a lot of great teams that he played on there. I mean, there was definitely some good runs in Vancouver, runs that would not have happened without him. This was not sitting back in easy chances in Vancouver. But overall, for the number of wins that he's got in that career, I think pretty spectacular considering the teams he played on.
Also gets us into the idea of voting more goaltenders to the Hockey Hall of Fame. So Lou is in there. That's a great step. I think there could be one every year. And that's on the men's or the women's side.
100%. Who do you have on the men's side that you might put in there, Darren?
I think Andy Moog and Chris Osgood are two fringe guys who deserve to be in there, and I've always believed that they had quality numbers when you go through it. So those are two that jump out at me from the past.
Yeah, Curtis Joseph for me as well, sixth all time. Everybody else ahead of him is in the Hall, but yeah, it stands out for me, Darren, that there's only one female goaltender in the Hockey Hall of Fame right now. Kim St. Pierre, of course, broke the barrier a couple of years ago. And there should be more. There was an opportunity to get somebody else in this year, and we haven't had one. Like Shannon Sabados, of course, stands out. Her last game was in 2018. Yep. I don't know that an official retirement was announced, so I couldn't even tell you if she's eligible. I'm certainly not a student of the game that I could be able to tell you who it should be, but people stand out for me like Kim Martin from Sweden, Florence Schelling, of course, from Switzerland. I think maybe to some extent, I wonder if they have a disadvantage because Canada and the US are just so dominant in the international game that they don't have those great numbers that you might see for a male goaltender who's had a dominant career in the National Hockey League. But for example, Kim Martin taking Team Sweden to an Olympic gold medal game can't be overlooked in a huge semifinal win. I think it was over the United States. Florence Schelling had a very long career. One of the first people I ever interviewed as part of InGoal before we had a podcast was Jesse Vetter from the United States, who had an absolutely dominant college career and a fantastic international career as well, but just unfortunately came up against Canada a couple times in the Olympic final. I just think it's time that there be more women in the Hall, and most particularly because this is the podium that we stand on. More goaltenders, please.
And one thing that works against them is just awareness. It's a big tournament every 4 years. You've got world championships, but doesn't quite get the exposure of the Olympics. So there's a trickle down there, even though you and I in this reign certainly value them on the same level. That's part that hopefully gets bigger and better. And if they can ever solve the two leagues into one league, should make it a little bit more front and center in our focus.
Yeah, for sure. I think that coverage for everybody is something that we need more of. We love watching the game, so the more they can get for us at all levels, I think it's going to be better for everybody.
Let's get more goaltenders in, more goaltenders, men, women. Doesn't matter as long as we get more representation in there. The Hockey Hall of Fame is a better place. We've got more to talk about on the ancillary side of what's going on in and around the world of goaltending and hockey. But let's take a break and slide over to the gear segment dealing with buckets. And I don't know whether you're of the mask side or the helmet side. I think I remember you're a helmet guy, if memory serves me correct.
I think you two have chirped me for saying helmet too many times. I think the truth is I don't actually really care. I grew up with a huge love for goalie masks, so I probably should be calling it that. And I don't even know where any of this started, Darren. What are you?
Well, I'm masked, but
Yeah.
the reason I bring it up is because I was wondering. I was doing some research preparing for the podcast, and I wrote down mask, and then I thought, "Oh, do we call it helmet? Like what inside the industry? I don't even know what it's called anymore. I watch broadcasts; they say helmet. They'll call it mask. I really don't know what the accepted primary title is.
I'm not sure that I do either. I was just texting with somebody from one of the big companies this morning too, and I probably should ask. I think what we talk about just sort of back and forth commonly is not necessarily what an accepted standard would be. I expect that the standards people would like us to call it a helmet because it has to, pass all the same sort of tests that a
Right.
player's helmet does. So there might be that side. The lawyers probably would like it to be called a helmet. I'm not really sure, Darren, but I think mask is cooler.
Well, you're going to hear a muffled Kevin Woodley in this week's gear segment brought to you by the Hockey Shop, source for sports Surrey. He's back wearing a mask like during the pandemic times, but this one is not the cloth variety. Here is Woody and Cam with the Bauer NME ONE mask.
Welcome back to the Hockey Shop, source for sports. We're down here in Goalie Utopia with Cam Matwiv. I'll give you two guesses what we're talking about today.
Skates.
That's one.
The fact that you're wearing the same same sweater that you were wearing last week.
Not really where I was going with this. Pretty sure we're going to talk about helmets. I got nothing left to say. It's all up to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about the brand new NME ONE helmet from Bauer. Bit of a redesign, some older technology refeatured back into the helmet from before, which we'll touch on here in a little bit.
What's old is new.
Exactly, which was also found out to be just as good, if not better, than what they had before anyway. So diving into the helmet a little bit more, we actually see their SAW technology, shock absorbing wire. So this is back, they debuted this technology.
So, what did you call it?
SAW, shock absorbing wire.
I like it. Okay. I mean, as opposed to when Cam plays, it's just the suck technology.
Technology. I just borrowed it from you. That's okay.
All right.
So this actually debuted on Bauer's concept helmets, their C1 and C2 helmets. Way back when, I think we were talking about 2014, 2015, I think it was off the top of my head, that those helmets came out. So what the technology is that there's actually a gap in between where the cage is mounted and how far the actual mountings can go back in terms of their rubber absorption qualities. So when the helmet actually gets hit, the cage actually recedes back, has a little bit of play into it, where it mounts actually on the helmet itself.
So what you're telling me is they built in shock absorption into the cage again, which is something they've done before and they've come back with it.
Yeah, well, obviously they got to know what it is.
I'm not so sure I'd call that technology.
I believe it's technology.
It's a cushion.
Well, they've researched it and found out that that's the best way for impacts right off the head.
The research part is technology. The bottom line is it's good for your head. It's going to save you from blows. I would like to see how it works. Could you put that on?
No. You're wearing it for me. We'll test that out later. So we know the straps of the mask work. Into the shell of the mask, advanced carbon layering. All that means basically is how they're actually laying the carbon itself. So carbon fiber mask in terms of overall rigidity and protection. Things that were addressed or really paid attention to were the chin.
It moves.
The cage, up and down, yes.
Okay, I got that now.
Chin has always been a hot topic point, especially in the NME series of masks. Been notorious for splitting, so we'll get a shot and we'll zoom in on the helmet a little bit more. We'll see that the chin's quite a bit thick.
You don't have to talk about that. You can just talk about the features and we do the zooming without you having
That's fine. It's just, calling it out. So make sure. So, stay tuned to look at this special feature. Thicker chin, a little bit more rigidity, better durability. That's the big key points out of it. Moving on to the actual inner shell of the helmet itself, inner foam liner, we still see their pour-on return. This is their advanced cloud tech.
More cushioning.
Exactly.
This is what I call technology.
Your technology.
Just.
Pour-on makes its return. Great for impact reduction, vibration in terms of actually how you're getting hit and how that energy is being transferred in throughout your head. Overall, extremely comfy feel-wise, lightweight would be the biggest key highlight. So major difference between this and the Profile Series helmet is going to be the weight difference between the two. So again, we're focused a little bit more on the actual saw technology and as well as the actual foam liner of the helmet in terms of for providing you your protection. Whereas again, those Profile Series helmets are a little bit thicker, a little bit more rigid. So that's where that protection is coming from. So that covers kind of like our basic differences.
Can I say that I love the chin cup and the fact that it's sort of set up with an elastic?
Yes, you sure can.
That.
It's good, right? Something that was actually debuted on the Profile Series this year, or last year, sorry. Again, just a little bit of a better feel, a little bit more absorption. Rather than having the straight nylon there, you get a little bit of a better feel.
Okay, so quick. I mean, obviously we've seen some of the ventilation holes have changed. It looks like it's going to be real breathable and not overheat. Where does this fit? Like we're talking about shell construction. Where does the enemy line fit in terms of safety, level of play, who it's for, sizing? We know that it's all about fit. I mean, there was a time when Bauer had, like the famous 961 was like the go-to mask, but it didn't fit everyone. They've done a really nice job of adding sizing. Is that the case with the enemy line as well?
So you still have fit 1, 2, and 3 with this. This is our high-end pro helmet. Enemy Series only
Do they have
exists.
a 4 for you?
Oh, it just wouldn't fit.
6?
Maybe a 7.
Yeah.
So high-end mask, only at the top end. There's no derivative series of this. Profile remains with Profile 960, 950, 940, and the 930. Only the Enemy One at that top end price point. Again, with all of our different fits. A couple things that have been amalgamated. Only one cage line now. Profile cages fit this mask. There's no such thing as just an Enemy cage anymore, which is great. So one line of cages, no confusion. Overall, in terms of fitment wise, it does help to fill some of the gaps that might come up in terms of the profile fitting. So it's like you kind of fit the medium, you kind of don't. You need a little bit of a larger fit. You might fit the medium in this a little bit better. Same thing with the large. There is a little bit more space inside the helmet in terms of for fitment. So we can look into that as well.
But this is a mask that our high-end testers that are playing junior and minor pro can be comfortable this summer taking out on the ice against some of the best shots in the world.
That's exactly what it's for.
Right. So in other words, it's a mask that's a little too much mask for you.
Not enough.
Yeah. Doesn't fit him. It's not big enough, but it's too much mask for the level he plays. That's just all I'm saying. Some of us actually need this mask, Cam.
So hopefully next week we'll see Kevin in a new sweater that doesn't have a tzatziki stain on it. You might also shower.
I washed, relax. Okay, last question, folks. Make sure you give them a call if you have questions, because there are, as Cam mentioned, a lot of variations or a lot of sort of different spots along the two different families of goalie masks from Bauer. If you've got questions about where this fit, how it fits, how the different fits fit, there's a lot of fit here. Make sure you give Cam or his crew, and there's a bunch of them, and they're all goalie geeks like Cam. Some of them are actually smart. Give them a call where to get a hold of them.
604-589-8299, or if the 1-800 number fits you better, 1-800-567-7790. Don't worry, we're number one, Enemy One.
So Bauer, you've got Andrei Vasilevsky in the Stanley Cup final, and we saw him wearing the new Bauer NME ONE. It was pretty obvious, wasn't it?
It probably should have been. And I feel really badly, Darren, because I don't have the name, but we had somebody write into us through Instagram, a direct message, gosh, at least a month ago, probably longer, with a photo of Vazzy in the helmet saying, hey, is this the new Bauer helmet mask? At the time, I knew it was, but wasn't really able to say anything. So I dodged it a little bit. But whoever you are, I apologize, but congrats for noticing. And everybody who notices, of course, we are most focused on the technology and the protection that they give, but we all notice the style as well. And those vent holes look pretty cool on the new NME ONE mask. And I think that's why people picked it out. I know when companies talk to us about new designs that are coming out, they want to know if they look cool. And that is something that matters. If not, did you ever see that crazy one that I shouldn't even say crazy because it probably is brilliant in terms of protection, but somebody designed one that looked more like a motorcycle helmet. So the back plate was sort of contiguous with the entire helmet.
Yes.
You pulled it over like a motorcycle helmet. I thought, that makes a whole lot of sense, but would anybody ever wear it?
Right.
But this new Bauer NME looks fabulous. It's quite a bit lighter, of course, than the 960, which I think is a standard in the industry, and fits a little different. And that's something we want to just keep underlining all the time when we do these things. We don't really review masks. If we put out something on a mask, we'll talk about the features, we'll talk about what it can do for you. It's more of what we would call like a preview. We're just telling you a little bit about it. And one of the reasons is, how can you possibly review them? Safety is such a huge issue. I'm not sitting in front of the puck machine and taking shots to the head to see how well they work. And even if it worked brilliantly for me, it might not fit you properly, Darren. And then what works for me doesn't necessarily work for you. So fit, we have always believed, is crucial to having a helmet, a mask that works well for you. And this NME mask fits a little bit different from the 960. And so you may or may not find that it's the right one for you. It's super important that you get in, give it a try. I'm sure there'll be a whole wall of them at the new hockey shop this fall.
And that's where Cam and company come in so handy with being able to help you, guide you through the different lines of masks.
Yeah, they sure can. And not just Cam, anybody who works down there plays the game. They're an expert at the game. They're not just somebody who's been hired at $15 an hour to fill a role and push some product. Do give them a call. When you call the hockey shop, just ask for the goal department. Anybody down there can give you a hand, including young Cooper, who was one of the guests at the Pete Fry Mindset seminar that we hosted on the weekend. Cooper, very appropriately named young goaltender, was one of a number of students who were with Pete in person and online, including yourself, Darren.
I had great exposure to it through my laptop, being able to absorb everything, not being in the front row, but and being as interactive as all the goaltenders, including Cooper and Matty. But it was intriguing. The online part was fun because I felt like I could watch from 30,000 feet almost. I love the idea of the blocker, the trapper, and the stick. Having the gloves and the twig there with you was a new step. And then all the different workshop angles with writing and goal setting, and both positive and negative, and how do you handle all that stuff?
Yeah, I thought one of the things he did really well was that there was something active and engaging every 5 to 10 minutes at most. The goaltenders were on their feet doing things all the time. It's interesting that you say that you enjoyed the 30,000 feet, because there were certainly some components of it that I thought were pretty personal, things that you had to do for yourself, writing down goals and such. Near the end, they did an exercise where they wrote down a pretty big, audacious goal for the season or for the career, and then actually got to sort of karate chop break these boards as if they were breaking through on the goal, and to really commit to it.
Yeah.
And I took a photo of everybody afterwards holding them up, and I thought to myself, some of those goals are pretty personal. Is that something you really want to share with the whole world? So I said to Pete, maybe this photo doesn't go out, or we blur out those goals that are written on those boards that they broke. But at the same time, I think one of the things that Pete does so brilliantly well is pull you out of your shell. And so in those activities where they were getting up there and getting all pumped up and getting to a hype level of 10 and controlling their hype level and so on, Pete really engages the guys that are in front of him there and really gets them doing things that maybe if they were at 30,000 feet, they wouldn't really throw themselves out there in quite the same way. And I think that's also super important. So yeah, I think he did a fantastic job. The whole webinar workshop will be available online at some point in the fairly near future. We're just sort of putting everything together to make sure it's all wrapped up properly for folks. So if people want to be involved, they still can. And you can also go to Pete's site, goalieseminars.com, and check out some of the other places around North America that he's going to be this summer.
The goal of Pete is to make sure that you are prepared from the mental aspect. You've done all the work. We know that people are so focused on the on-ice portion, but to complement that and be able to handle the situations and have it all come together at the right time, which for Jake Oettinger in this week's Sense Arena feature interview certainly had that come to fruition in that opening round, and put a little bow on what has been a big journey of his going back to before the bubble.
Yeah, sure has. Like, wasn't it one of the most dominant 7-game performances we've ever seen in the Stanley Cup playoffs? And unfortunate for all of us that it only lasted one round. If only a different bounce could have come his way in the in Game 7 and overtime. But before we do that, we just have to acknowledge our friends at Sense Arena who bring us the feature interview every week. And I was thinking about Sense Arena a little bit this week, Darren, because I'm always amazed by the number of goaltenders that we bump into who say they use it. Just without asking, it comes up. And I find that more often than not, those goaltenders are the ones who are willing to do that little bit extra to become a little bit better, to reach their goals in their career. And I was in a dressing room the other day with a major junior goaltender who is about to start a professional career, and didn't talk to him about sharing this story, so I won't name any names. But I was at the rink more than an hour before this ice session began. Let's face it, your coach wants you there more than an hour during the season, but during the summer, you see a lot of goaltenders roll in flip-flops half an hour before an ice time. But more than an hour ahead, this goaltender was there, went into the gym, got a good sweat on, did the foam rolling, did the hand-eye coordination. I mean, he did everything to get ready for this goalie skate, and then brought up the fact that he's been working with Sense Arena as well. Didn't really surprise me. That's the kind of guy that uses Sense Arena. And if you want to be a better goaltender, it's hard to get enough ice. Who can afford $200-300 an hour to grab some ice? 1 hour practice 3 or 4 times a week is not enough to become world class. Think of another sport where you only practice 4 times a week and you go to the Olympics. I don't think you'll find one. Sense Arena gives you that opportunity, Darren. You get pro shooters, you learn to make pro reads, you get professional scenarios thrown out in front of you, like power play formations and so on. And you can do it anytime you want, as much as you want. And even if you just use it for 15 or 20 minutes a day for the rest of the summer, I guarantee you're going to have your best year ever this fall. So check out Sense Arena, everybody. Use the code IGM50, that's as in InGoal Mag 50, and you get a bit of a discount on top of whatever they're offering right now. So Sense Arena, check it out.
Yes, and being able to make reads is something that you and Jake talk about in your conversation, and depth, and then you get into the zone part of it, and then being patient in the course of your career, because he had different looks. It looks like there's opportunities, and they went in different directions. Dallas made him overripe, and it's worked out well because he is the guy with the Dallas Stars and new head coach Pete DeBoer. Now, what else jumped out at you when you talked to Jake during this conversation that will bring you?
Well, again, another one of those people that will do everything he can. And he talked about details, the little details all the time. And we didn't have a chance to pull too much at that. But for me, the fact that he worries about every little detail, is the head check just right? What hand is the player coming down on me using right now? Is my depth consistent? That's one that really stood out for me when we talked about what's he going to do for the summer to try and be ready for the fall, to step it up again a little bit more. And he mentioned how he noticed on video that in some scenarios he might be starting here, in a similar scenario the next time maybe his depth is a little bit different, and him wanting to create some real consistency in his game is something that he's seeing in the video right now. So that stood out. And I guess what really stood out for me is just the fact that we were able to be pretty specifically goaltending. I think when he got on with me, he probably thought that he was set up for a 5-minute radio hit with the local radio station kind of thing. But kudos to him for really getting into it, really talking about goaltending, and the honesty, Darren. When he talked about the situation this year, talked about seeing that Dallas had signed Braden Holtby and the disappointment that he felt. That's not the kind of thing that you talk about with the local newspaper when they ask you how you're feeling before the season. But he knew he's talking to goaltenders, and knew he was talking to, I think, young goaltenders. And so there's a whole lot in there, because here's a guy who's, 24 years old, something like that, still quite young. So he's not far off of the same experiences that everybody has been through. And so his ability to share a lot of these things with young goaltenders really, really stood out for me. What a great young man, and thrilled that he was able to join us this week.
Reminds me so much of the trajectory of Thatcher Demko, where you want it, but you have to wait for it. And then when it happens, you are so ready to take the reins and handle it, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, but perfect example, Darren. That's exactly what happened here in Vancouver, wasn't it? And finally did get his opportunity, as you said, overcooked. It's got to be really hard for these guys because their entire lives they've been successful. There aren't many guys coming into the National Hockey League that struggled their whole career, and many are ahead of the timeline. There's some notable exceptions, obviously, especially some of the guys that, come the college European route that maybe are a little bit older by the time they arrive. But for the most part, these are guys that are used to success. And now all of a sudden the brakes are getting put on them. And they've probably been in training camp and they probably played exhibition games and they feel ready to go. To a really good comparison. But, it's a different position that we have to keep acknowledging. It's not just about, can I make some saves, but you really have to make all the saves. There isn't a big margin for error. Let's go back to Darcy Kemper there with that one big save he had to make in the final game. Like, there's no margin for error there. We might be playing game 7 if he doesn't make that save. So you have to be more than ready to take the reins, not just ready to play a little bit. So
great conversation coming your way with Jake Oettinger, brought to you by Sensorina VR on InGoal Radio, the podcast. Here's David with Jake Oettinger.
My guest today needs no introduction, but he deserves one nonetheless. Jake Oettinger put up an incredible performance leading the Dallas Stars in this year's playoffs versus Calgary, and he was undoubtedly the MVP of the first round, and his numbers actually still hold up amongst the best. 954 Jake, 181 over 7 games, 64 saves in Game 7. One of the best performances, without a doubt, over 7 games in Stanley Cup history. And I don't know if you know, but some of those numbers, if you look at the advanced stats, your goals saved above expected at 11.58, this is according to ClearSight Analytics, is still number 2 in the playoffs. Only Igor Shesterkin ahead of you after 3 rounds. Your 4.8% above expected save percentage, tops amongst all goalies to get even one start in the playoffs this year. How are you feeling today? How are you feeling? Playoffs are still on. You've had a little time to reflect on it. How do you look back on it?
Yeah, I think, obviously it was a crazy run and experience, and haven't played playoffs before, didn't really know what to expect going into it. And, it was everything that it had been hyped up to be and more. And it was definitely the funnest hockey I've ever played in my life. And being able to play against Calgary was an unbelievable fan base. Getting to play up in Calgary in those games, were some of my favorite hockey memories. And, I think it's nice. I got a taste of, why we really play and why we, grind all regular season is so you can get to that position. And, now I'm just even more hungry to get back to that position and, hopefully have a better outcome, next year. So, it was a great learning experience and some of the most fun hockey I've ever played. And, now I'm just even more motivated to get back there. So kind of stings watching the playoffs now still, knowing that, we could have, still been there, but, now it's our job to, reflect and hopefully we can change the outcome next time.
Can you describe for a young goaltender what it's like that first day of the first playoff game, or stepping onto the ice and hearing that national anthem? What's going through your head?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is I just wanted to try to really soak it in and have fun. I think, it's really easy to get nervous in situations like that. And, I try to look at it and play like I had nothing to lose. And, if I just went out there and played my heart out and left it all on the ice, then, I could live with the results, and felt like I did that. And it's also, I feel like I learned a valuable lesson in that I'm playing my best hockey when I'm just trying to go out there and have fun and enjoy, the process of, getting prepared for games like that and, all the little things that go into, getting yourself ready to play in games. So just enjoying the process of the work that you have to put in, the attention to detail and all that stuff is, stuff that I just try to enjoy every second of it and enjoy it when I was on the ice. And, you never know how many opportunities you're going to get like that. So, I just wanted to make the most of it.
Do you get a chance when you're there to look up, and whether it's seeing friends and family in the stands or just everybody going crazy, do you get a chance just to say, hey, I'm here, this is pretty cool?
Yeah. Usually during the national anthem, I like to take a good look around, and, Calgary is just such a cool building, and to have everyone in red and stuff too is just like, just a sea of people. So, I looked up and said, hopefully I can, could send these people home pretty upset. So, that was the plan. And, I was able to do that a couple nights. And, it's just, it's one of those things like, when you look back on your life, those are going to be some of the best memories is when you got to compete against the best, on a stage like that. So, I'm happy I was able to do it, and I plan on doing it for a very long time.
Was it everything you expected growing up?
Yeah, and then some. I think, just the level of play that everyone brings their game to, and every game felt like it was a series in its own. It's so important, and that's when all the little details that coaches harp on and all the little stuff become the big stuff. It's one missed coverage or bad push or bad shoulder check or something that can end up costing you a series. So that's when all the stuff that you work on day in and day out and all summer long, you hope that you can put your best foot forward and play your best at that time.
I'm curious about that process going into big games, and you're no stranger to big games, obviously, whether it's your debut in high school at the Minnesota State Tournament or World Juniors, winning that shootout game in front of 45,000 people. But how do you cope with that from a mindset perspective? Because as you jump up the levels, that level of detail increases every time. The preparation of the coaches increases. There's more video. There's more meetings. How do you handle all that and stay clear enough to actually play?
Yeah, I think, one thing I've talked to my family about and stuff is, I'm already way farther than I ever imagined that I would be in my hockey career, and have done, stuff that if you told me when I was a little kid where I'd be, that I wouldn't believe you. And I think, I feel like at this point, like I'm playing with house money, and I just am able to go out there and have fun and just try to leave it all out there. I don't really feel like, crazy pressure or anything like that. I don't think, people expected, me to be where I am. And for me, it's just now that I have this opportunity, I want to, make sure when I'm done playing hockey, I have zero regrets. So, those games are the ones that are the most fun and, the ones that people talk about and remember. And, going into those games nervous and scared of, the moment is not going to lead to success for me. And I think I learned that a ton this year. Just, you can't be afraid of the moment. And, there's a reason that you strap the pads on every day, and that's to, have an opportunity to, make a name for yourself and help your team win on a big stage. And, that's what you dream about. And, that's the reason that I, do what I do every day to put myself in the position that, hopefully I have more opportunities like that down the road.
How do you do all that, though? I mean, if you're a young guy sitting in a room with all these veteran NHL players, are you soaking in every little detail of every meeting, or do you like to just sort of go into your own space and let the rest of it go? What's the approach?
Yeah, I think for me, I like to kind of focus on myself and, what I can do. And, even like, all the goalies know, where you do tedious meetings and stuff, and, most of it has, no real effect on your game. And, my goalie coach and I are very detailed, and, we know the process that's worked for me, and, the information that I like to gather before the game, on the other team's power play and kind of their top scorers. I like to know their tendencies and stuff, and you study that stuff, and you also put in the work that you need to do before the game. And then, once it's game time, that's where you just don't think and you just play and let your instincts take over.
How much information are you gathering before a game? Like, how many of those guys do you really know a few things about from the pre-scouts, and how many guys have you got your eye on when they step on the ice?
Yeah, I think, each team I pick a couple guys. I think, Calgary was, their top line was, one of the best top lines, if not the best in the entire league during the season. So, for me, that was, kind of where I focused most of my attention. And the other team's power play, I think, something I really focus on. And, that's, as a goalie, that's kind of your time to step up in the game. It feels like, is, when your team's shorthanded. So, if I can learn, the 3-4 options that the team's looking for, then, maybe you can be, a little half step ahead when it actually happens in front of you.
I think everybody out there would say that you were playing in the zone throughout that whole series. Can you describe what that means to you? What does it feel like to be in the zone?
Yeah, it's like the best feeling in the world. I think it's like, you're just nothing at least for me, there's nothing in my head going on. People are like, what were you thinking on this or that? It's like nothing. I was out there just playing the game that I love and doing what the instincts told me to do. And, but that, that comes with, preparation and the work before and, simulating the stuff that you think might happen. And, that's all stuff I do. But, when it comes game time and the puck drops and, if I'm thinking about, where I need to be or that type of stuff, then, I'm probably not going to have success. So for me, when I'm in the zone, I'm prepared and I'm confident, and then I'm just, letting my instincts take over.
So you've told us here, and you've said to other people that you want to get back to this place. You want to do everything you can to be prepared for next season. What does that look like in the summertime for you? What are you going to be doing this summer to be ready in the fall?
Yeah, I think right now the first 6 weeks or so of my off ice training is just kind of trying to get healthy and get my body to just not think I'm a goalie for a little bit. That's kind of how I like to say it, is kind of take the goalie out of your body. And goaltending is a very hard position on your body and not a natural one. And for me, it's just I try to get back to the basics and the fundamentals of what it means to be moving like a normal human being. And once I do that, I have a mobility coach that I go to 4 days a week, and then I have a strength training coach that I go to 4 days a week. And that's when I really kind of will start to get into the process of getting stronger and more explosive and that type of stuff. And then for me, I also like to take a lot of time away from the rink and play other sports and take my mind off of hockey and be a normal person. I love to golf and spend time with my family and friends. And I think it's important. It's such a long season, and I think if you jump on the ice too early, or if you never stop thinking about hockey, then come February you're gonna not want to come to the rink every day, put your skates on. So there's a important balance for me of putting in detailed and specific work, but also enjoying life and taking time away from the rink.
Can you give me any examples from those strength or mobility workouts of what taking the goalie out of your body means?
Yeah, specifically for me, I'm, really working on my ankles, knees, and hips. And, I'm trying to increase the, capacity in those joints. And that's, those are the three hardest, things on your body as a goalie that you kind of crush, day in and day out. And, I think if you can kind of expand the range of motion that you currently have, I think, when you stretch out to make a save, or, you put your body in a weird spot, then, the work that you do increasing that capacity is, your body will have already felt what it's like to kind of be working in that space, and, that prevents injury and stuff like that.
So are you doing some of the sort of work that creates strength at that length, not just range of motion, but how do we stay strong there?
Yeah, exactly. So it's, first, putting your body in that space where, it's never really been before. And then, once you can kind of get there, it's then, strengthening it and making sure that, if your body puts itself in that position, that, it's confident enough to, not, hurt itself by being in a position like that. So that's where all that comes in. And honestly, I think, that stuff for me is the most important. Obviously it's important to be in good, be strong and lean and that type of stuff. But I think for me, that's definitely the most important stuff.
How long have you been doing that sort of work?
I started, I first kind of got introduced to that stuff in college, my freshman year of college. But the last summer and this summer is kind of the two times where I've had like a specific coach who's, her number one job is that. And without her, I think, I would have been injured multiple times. So,
do you want to give a shout out for who you're working with here?
Yeah. Her name is Grace Watoon, and her Instagram is that Coach Grace. I think there'll be a lot of goalies that'll go on her Instagram page and see what they're missing out on. And I know actually Connor Lecouve is huge into the same stuff that I'm talking about, and he's taken some stuff from her page as well. So it's a great resource, and you can find a lot of stuff you can do on your own on her page for free as well. So I think all goalies, regardless of their age, should be doing some type of this stuff, especially, before they go on the ice.
Awesome. Hey, can we take a step back to when you started? What's the origin story for Jake the goaltender? How did you get started? Why did you want to be a goalie?
Yeah, so my mom kind of got me into hockey. She loved hockey, and I never really had any family members or anything to play hockey. And so I started out just playing defense, and the goalie on our team, I think it was our last year of mites, or maybe in sports, maybe first year of sports, our goalie was really, really good. And he got called up to be a peewee, and so they were like, hey, we don't have a goalie. Does anyone want to go in the net? And my mom was like, you should try it. You're basically trying to play goalie when you're playing defense. So I tried it, and loved it and just kind of stuck with it from there. So it's kind of lucky and kind of funny how that all works out. I don't know if he wouldn't have got pulled up, I don't know if I ever would have strapped the pads on.
Do you know what it is you loved about it? Was it the gear? Was it the center of attention? Being the guy who makes a difference? What's the thing?
Yeah, I think a combination of all three probably. I think just I loved all the gear and all that stuff. But yeah, I think being able to make a huge difference and being one of the most important guys on the team, that definitely is a good feeling too. So I was pretty good at it at the start and was just like, let's just try it and see what happens. So it's pretty crazy that it's brought my life to where I am now.
Was there a goalie growing up in Minnesota you looked up to? Somebody you wanted to pattern yourself after, maybe?
The one guy, I mean, early on, the first guy that pops in my head was Charlie Lindgren. I think he's from kind of the same hometown as me. And I remember, when he was in high school, going to the section final and stuff. And he was like unbelievable year after year for Lakeville North and brought him to state every year. So he was kind of the first guy I really was like, I want to be like that guy. And, now to have skated with him for, many years in the summer and to, be a friend of his, it's pretty cool. And then in the NHL, still to this day, I'm obsessed with Henrik Lundqvist. So he was kind of my the guy that I, wanted to be like. And I'm pretty sure I've watched just about every Henrik Lundqvist video there is on YouTube. So
two guys who've been great to us and guests on the show before as well. We love both of them. And Charlie had a fantastic year. Well, he's still going now, isn't he? So
yeah, absolutely, yeah. So he's he's the guy that's worked for everything that he's ever gotten, and he's one of the most competitive people that I've ever met. So it's fun to battle against him in the summer and stuff too.
Can you talk to us a little bit about what you've had to develop as you've moved from university up into the pros? What's changed about your game? How do you adapt to that high speed east-west game that we're seeing now in the National Hockey League?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is just like, I think I have a lot of natural talent and, I'm a good, just natural ability to stop the puck and stuff. But I think I've just gotten so much smarter and my hockey IQ has gotten, so much better. And I think I learned a lot of that from Ben Bishop and, just the way that he thinks about the position, and his mind is, one of the best hockey IQ minds, and, developing, those reads. And I think for me, like, I think I'm at a point where I feel confident enough where I can make a save pretty much at any, spot in the crease. So sometimes, learning the difference of, when you need to be out and when you need to be back and that type of stuff is I think, just been huge strides for my game. And I think, that's one thing that, you never really master. The reads are always going to get better and sharper. And, but I think for me, since turning pro, that's kind of the main thing that, has helped me, have success. And in college, it was just kind of, go out there and stop the puck. And now it's, you got to do that. But also, if you can be prepared and make good reads and, know what's going on around you, not necessarily just, who has the puck, but who might get the puck next is, something that's helped me a ton.
How did you develop that? Are you and Ben sitting down and going over video together, or is it just debriefing a game, or how's it happen?
Yeah, it's both, and it's it's work every day in practice. I think it's little tedious details of shoulder checks, and in practice, focusing, whenever you get a rush drill, or focusing on what hand the guy is, or if there's a one-timer threat, stuff like that, and then definitely video from games and stuff. I think there's times in games where you'll look back and be like, what was I doing there? Like, there's no need to be out that far, or vice versa. So it's a skill that you have to intentionally think about, and then be able to work on it every day in practice, which is what I've done and still do.
I'm interested in the beginning of this year. You come to the team, obviously quite the pedigree and an important prospect for Dallas, but there you are with Braden Holtby, Stanley Cup winner, Vezina Trophy winner. Hudobin took the team to the Stanley Cup Finals recently. You've got Ben Bishop, you've mentioned. How do you approach the season when you got three guys like that ahead of you?
Yeah, it's it was tough, honestly. I think I felt like I had a good year the season before, and that I was just kind of scratching the surface, and had expected to come into camp and have the spot that I had last year. And when they signed Holtby, I knew that I was probably going to get sent down, and obviously I was. I remember seeing that on social media and stuff, and my heart kind of sank and was like, one of the worst feelings, I've had. So, I remember, all the people reach out and stuff saying, you'll just work hard and all that type of stuff. But, at the end of the day, that doesn't make you feel any better. And, I just thought in my head that, if I got the opportunity to play in one game, I was going to have to make the most of it. And I didn't know, if that opportunity would ever even come. And, once I got called up, I knew I was going to have to play great or I'd be right back down to where I was. So, just using that anger and the frustration and that type of stuff in a positive way. I feel like I went down to the American League and didn't act like I had played the entire year in the NHL before, and just was the same person and showed up every day and was a good teammate and worked my butt off. And then, I knew where I wanted to be, but obviously I was going to have to, play well when I got my chance in order to get back there.
Yeah, you sure did that in the end, didn't you? Can you give me the scouting report on Jake Oettinger? What do you think your strengths are, and what are you going to be working on in the next few months here?
Yeah, I think my strengths, when I'm playing well, I think I make the game look easy, and I'm smooth and controlled and, never really out of position. And, right now I think, one of the biggest things I'm going to continue to work on, I think, is just, seeing those reads and, trying to sharpen up my positioning. And one of the big things that I focused on this year was, when should I be coming out from the goal line? When should I be coming out, to be where I want to be, to get my depth? And, sometimes it was like you could take an overhead angle of the thing and I'd be like at the top of the crease when the guy was at like the red line. And then sometimes I would do that when, he was just inside our blue line. So deciding when I'm most comfortable and when I think, the best time to step out is, and just doing it consistently is something that, I'm going to work on. And, I found that, like I said earlier, I think, I feel like confident enough to, make saves from any depth of the crease. And I think for me, I was at my best, especially in playoffs when I was kind of, letting the game develop in front of me before I, came out and challenged. And obviously, being 6'5" definitely, kind of gives me an advantage in that aspect. And, if I was a smaller goalie, I might think a little differently. But, I think for me, it's definitely angle over depth and, being able to, get back to a lateral pass or, not being too aggressive to where, if the guy does make a move or passes that, I'm out swimming. So that's something that, you can't really change in one skate. And that'll be, what I'll be working on the most, I think, this summer.
Sounds a little bit like your hero growing up, Henrik Lundqvist, a guy who can play deep and make a save from anywhere. But really, I think people didn't realize that he also knew when to take depth and when was the right time to do that.
Exactly, yeah. So that's, he obviously was unbelievable at that. And, I think obviously that, I'm a lot taller than he was or is. And so I think if I can master that like he did and then use my height as well, then it could be pretty good.
The other thing you've got in common with Henrik is a love for Bauer gear. Can you tell us about why you like Bauer?
Yeah, well, first of all, the customer service that, they've had for me has been unbelievable. But I think originally I was using kind of a softer pad. And I really like the way like the Bauer just kind of feels like it's like just one like flat, hard piece. And, I think, guys are so good now at shooting at your pads and trying to, use rebounds to their advantage that, if I can kick a rebound out that I could get my stick on and it's, going so fast that they can't get their stick on it, is something that, I think I can use to my advantage. So, it's been unbelievable. And, I won't be wearing anything else anytime soon. That's for sure.
Do you have any idea if you're just in a stock spec on your pads, or have they done some special stuff for you?
Yeah, I think I'm like I'm one up from like a stock level of like stiffness. Okay. But other than that, like stock, like glove and blocker, like literally they send like a new graphic and I'm like, hey, just throw that on like the same pad pretty much. So nothing like too crazy. So yeah, just pretty stock. And yeah, I've loved it. So it's the best.
Where are you in the new Connect skates?
I don't know. I tried them a lot last summer and liked them a lot, but right now I just don't know like if I'm gonna wear them anytime soon. That's kind of the only thing I'm picky with is my like skates and just how I kind of feel in my stance. And, I didn't have enough time really to get comfortable in them. But, the technology and the innovation, obviously, you see a ton of guys using them now, Bassey and all those guys. And I think, you're going to continue to see more and more, NHLers using them. So, the benefits are definitely there. And, I feel like right now I'm not giving myself the benefits that, other guys are getting from those skates just because I'm being picky about the old stiffness of my old boot. But I definitely will be in those skates at some point.
Little Bird also told me you use a 25-inch paddle. Are you still in that? And what's the thinking behind something so small for a big man?
Yeah, that was kind of my goalie coach at BU, Brian Eklund. It was his idea. I think if I was just holding on to like right above the blade, I think he'd be okay with that. Like, I think the thinking is, if you're using a super long paddle, like when you're down in your butterfly, your blocker will be standing like super high up, right? So when I use a shorter paddle, my blocker and glove are both down. My stick is like flat on the ice because the only time you need your stick on the ice is when, you're going down or someone's trying to shoot at 5-hole. So you don't, at least for me, I don't think you need to have your stick on the ice, when you're moving around in the crease. So, the most important part is feeling comfortable when they shoot it along the ice, and shorter paddle makes me feel like I can kind of get my head and body down more on the puck.
Awesome. If you were to get a chance to chat with young Jake, maybe when he's 10 or 12 years old, any advice for him now that you've been through all this?
Yeah, I'd like to tell him, I had a, really tough decision when I was 15 of whether or not I should go and leave home and play for the NCDP. And I was in a really good position in my high school team. And, I loved playing with my buddies, and, we were a great team. And, that was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had. I was, leaning towards just staying home and not going. And I eventually, made the decision that, it was best for me in my career if I ended up leaving. And, it was the best decision I've ever made in my life, and, a really hard one. So I think, it goes to show, you're going to have to make tough decisions along the way. And I sacrificed, a normal, high school life to, chase after a dream, and, it was all going to pay off. So, I think a lot of young hockey players are faced with tough decisions, and, going to have to sacrifice a lot. But, if you sacrifice some stuff now, you'll be able to do the stuff that, you dreamed about hopefully one day. So it's definitely, I think I'm a good example of that for sure.
Yeah, you sure are. What's the most important thing for that young guy to work on from a technical perspective?
I think I kind of was behind in kind of my skating and my foundation. I think, I didn't work a ton on that type of stuff. And, even if it's 10 minutes a day, I do more skating now that, I'm in the NHL than, when I was 14, 13, which I feel like it should be the opposite. So I think that's such an important part of the game, especially now with, how good guys are and, how quick they can move the puck laterally and stuff. And for me, I feel like if you're on your feet more, you're going to be able to, put yourself in a better position to make saves. And, so just, even if it's 5 minutes a day, just continue to work on your foundation and your basics. It's like, kind of like a golf game. You gotta, even though it's tedious, you gotta do the little things. Otherwise, the big things are gonna kind of get out of whack. So that's something I would tell them.
I love the focus on the details.
Yeah,
I can hear it coming from you all the way along. Was there somebody who instilled that for you?
Yeah, not specifically. I think I've just learned that. It's just like, the days. I feel like goaltending is such a good position where, right when you feel like you got things figured out, you get brought back down to earth. And that's why I don't think you can ever really be too detailed or too focused on the basics. And I think one person that, at least, I've never talked to anyone about this, or I could be completely off base, but I always notice, like I said earlier, I watch YouTube stuff. I would always watch stuff on Carey Price too, and it always seemed like he was doing the most basic, just easy drills consistently. And when you see a guy like that, it's like, maybe I don't need to be doing crazy drills every single day. If you can hammer home the foundation and have unbelievable fundamentals, then you can let your athleticism and your natural ability take over from there. So I always noticed that, and that's honestly where I got half my drills growing up. When I didn't have a goalie coach was from YouTube and seeing what guys that were way better than you were doing.
That's fantastic. Well, that's obviously one of the things we want to do is share a lot of that stuff with guys. And there's been a ton of Carey Price sharing content with people through us. And I couldn't agree more that the simplicity and yet the detail and the simplicity is definitely a hallmark for him. And great to see that it's doing great things for you as well.
Yeah, and I think that's also where I gained like a lot of confidence. I think when I hammer home the foundation, and when you do stuff that you're good at, it makes you feel good about yourself and about your game. And I always try to do that every single day in practice. You're good at one thing and you want to work on another, but make sure you're still doing the stuff that you're good at, so that you are gaining that confidence consistently. And it's something I do every day.
Jake, I would love to talk to you for about 3 hours, but I have a funny feeling I might be holding you from a tea time or something here. It's is your ideal summer a little bit of training in the morning and then head to the golf course?
That's the absolute ideal off season. So it's I like to work out nice and early and get everything done, and then that's where you can go hit them with your buddies. So that's definitely consists of, that's what my off season is for sure.
Awesome. Well, I wish you well on the golf course today. And more importantly, I wish you well this summer in your preparation and next season. I hope you'll take some time with us again to share more of your knowledge and your growth in the game with all the young goaltenders who are listening and reading InGoal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. We'll do it again soon.
As that conversation continued, I was writing things down, going, okay, we got to talk about this coming out of it. We got to talk about this coming out of it. There's a bunch of point form, real bullet conversation angles, and in the one that I go back to first and foremost is the idea that he had that decision to make about leaving home. And was it the right decision? He was comfortable. He's with his buddies playing high school hockey. Did he want to go to the U.S. Junior program or stay at home? And there's no right or wrong answer on this. It's really each individual case, isn't it?
No, it sure is. And I was really thankful that he was willing to share that piece with us. An interesting thing that he looked back on when we talked about advice for your younger self, because really underlines how difficult that decision must have been as a family to move a long way from home at a very young age. We made a different decision, but to be perfectly honest,
because you guys stayed home.
We did, but also didn't have that carrot ahead of him. This wasn't the national team he was going to play with. To be able to go and play with the very best in the country is quite the carrot being dangled in front of you. Ours was a much smaller decision. But I would almost argue tougher. There are so many young goaltenders, so many young hockey players now faced with that opportunity to go and play a little further away for some particular academy team or AAA team or whatever it might be to chase the dream. And it's not so clear cut that that's the right route that's going to get you somewhere. For sure, maybe more guys get drafted out of that league, but it doesn't mean that they end up playing at the next level. And it's not as easy a decision for anybody to make these days, and I feel for everybody, and you never know if you're making the right decision, and you never will.
It was fascinating to hear him so caught in the middle when it was the USDP, the United States Development Program, which people are clamoring to get involved in, and he was still on the fence of that. And I, from your conversation, feel like if the decision was made today, he might make a different one, even knowing how it worked. I mean, I'm projecting my own vision into it, but he was that torn by it.
Yeah, and let's face it, there's a whole lot more to life than hockey, and being part of a close family and growing up with your family and as parents for us, raising your children is incredibly important. So but at the same time, we all want to see our kids succeed and follow their dreams. And we have to let them go at some point. So they're very, very difficult decisions for everybody. But we all do our best as parents.
What's going on over at the website right now?
As always, there's lots of great stuff there, and there's more stuff in the pipeline. We encourage people to check out ingoalmag.com. Something that stood out for me was one of our recent pro reads where I think it was Joey Decord was looking at two almost identical situations in the same power play, but facing two different players that were different handed. And so he talks about that read and weaves into that the pre-scout, something that Jake Oettinger and I talked a little bit about, the pre-scout. Yeah. What is it that you pay attention to? Something perhaps younger goaltenders, I'm sure younger goaltenders aren't as familiar with. And in this one, Joey actually talks about how that pre-scout helped him in addition with his read in that moment. And for me, it's always the pro reads that stand out, that opportunity to listen to professional goaltenders talk about what they did. We also have a Jake Allen pro read where he makes a pretty quick bang, low to high save and talks about why he didn't try to take more depth in that scenario. And it wasn't simply trying to get there quickly as he could. So that's Jake, I think, is our most prolific pro reads collaborator, shall we call him. And with about 13 of them now to date over at InGoalMag.com. And certainly his insights in the game are invaluable for all of us. And we're super thankful. And then just as we were talking about the Hall of Fame, of course, Darren, we did republish over at InGoalMag.com an article that had probably been buried from years ago, where Woody weighed in on whether Francois Allaire belongs in the Hall of Fame as a builder. Of course, for many, the greatest goaltending coach of all time. And Woody talked to a number of NHL goaltenders to get their feelings on whether Francois belongs in the Hall. And I would argue it's long past time that he be there as well.
I agree. Stick tap to Woody and all the great work that he's done in trying to champion that and get it to the finish line and across. The Joey part in that situation where it was left hand, right hand, it's one of those ones where you leave and you go, that's so obvious. Why didn't I think of that? It just seems so blatantly or club you over the head. Just straightforward, but it took it a different angle.
It did. And look, it's not enough to just read an article and now you know how to play that scenario in a game, because all that you're doing is sort of tilting the odds in your favor. They still could do something else for you. Right. But when you're faced with something that's that challenging, that quick at the NHL level, you have to tilt the odds in your favor as best you can. And so having done that pre-scout and having faced that situation in practice, now he's a little bit more prepared. And hopefully everybody who reads the article, they're going to be a little bit more prepared next time they hit the ice too.
That's what Woody's doing right now. He's preparing himself, but to hang 10, not do a pad stack. Although falling off the board, sometimes you do look like you're a pad stack. Wouldn't you like to go watch Woody surf just once, just to take it all in?
With a camera. So badly. With a camera.
Exactly.
So badly. But I can't surf at all, so I'm not going to mock him.
Oh, no, you and I are paddlers, or we sit on the board. That's what we do. Because you can sit out there on the board with your feet hanging off the side and look like a champion, like really good. It's just when you try and surf that you get exposed.
I only tried it once out in Tofino where it's very, very cold. So I would not just sit on the board and dangle my feet in the water. Woody probably would be too worried about the sharks or something, so he wouldn't dangle his feet. That's the only thing keeping him upright, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, he and I have that in common. We are going to Tofino. We were just talking about that this morning. The family next summer is the plan.
Oh, so, wow.
Hopefully we will see you. Well, you better
see us
each other. Yeah, and we'll cross paths then. But that's just a little bit of the planning ahead that we're doing right now in the Millard Castle, which is a very small turret. I gotta admit that. Thanks, buddy. Great job with Jake.
Thank you. Great fun hanging out, just the two of us.
Isn't it good to get a word in edgewise? Also, thanks to Cam, and thanks to you for listening to InGoal Radio, the podcast. Take what Jake said and put it to use. Really cool being in the zone and the different situations that you come across, and cluttering your mind and your body after the season. That part about not being a goalie for a while, that's cool too. And taking it down that path.
And how about also the off-ice training to unwind the goaltending from your body as well, not just mentally, but physically. Yeah, fascinating stuff. I was actually on the IG account for his trainer that he mentioned.
That Coach Grace is perfect. She's entertaining, and she has all kinds of cool posts on there. So give her a follow. Thanks to Jake. Thanks to Cam. Thanks to you for listening. We'll talk to you next week on InGoal Radio, the podcast.